It's all about you. It's all about you, baby. Mike Dix is a wonderful creative who is living with a life-threatening cancer diagnosis and seagulls outside his home. It's an interesting story of how to pull yourself through an incredibly tough time. Mike speaks candidly about his life and how cancer has impacted all areas of it. What is brilliant is seeing how he has adapted his work and his attitude to pull himself into a great space despite everything he's dealing with. One thing that I love especially is the relationship not only with his dog, but with his clients who patiently are waiting for Mike's latest creative endeavour. And the reason I love that is he isn't letting the treatment and his diagnosis hold him back or stop him from producing what he wants to do with his work. Finally, you've got to love that damn drill in the background. Take a listen. This podcast is sponsored and supported by 365daysofbreastcancer.com. And welcome, Mike Dix, to It's All About You, the podcast.
Thank you.
Nice to be down here in lovely Hove by the sea.
I'm afraid I couldn't organise the weather for you.
No, but it's not too bad.
No, but Brighton and Hove are always lovely. Whatever.
Oh, they are. It's just great to have that on your doorstep. I expect it's quite good for your soul when you need it.
Definitely.
Yeah. The reason Mike and I are chatting today is you've had a full-on stare down the lens with cancer, as have I, and you were due to do a chat at Maggie's Cancer Care Centre in Oxford, which is where I came across you. And I just wondered if we could just touch on your experience, really, and can you give us a full picture of who you are and what you were doing BC before cancer?
Okay, how long have you got?
Yeah.
So BC before cancer. I had dozens and dozens of careers, I guess, but they were all kind of the same thing. It was about using technology to be creative or selling technology, I guess. So I started off selling computers when nobody really knew what a computer was, and then colour printers when that was amazing, and fax machines and all sorts of things in younger days, including hand dryers for toilets.
Oh,
It's
okay.
a terrible week of my life. But then I started moving towards the media, and I did some work for an internet company when the internet was something people didn't really know what that was, and a local TV station, and then ended up making websites for Channel 4, and then ended up making TV programmes for Channel 4, and games and interactive dramas and all sorts of things. So that was probably career 1 and 2. And then just prior to the cancer, my last job was working for a trade organisation that represented film and TV producers. So lobbying Channel 4 and the BBC and the government to get rights for creative makers. And then I got sacked from that job, because I got sacked from most jobs.
Okay.
And it took me many years to work out that it wasn't that I was just really unlucky and got a lot of bad bosses, but actually it was me. It was I was unemployable, and so I started working for myself.
I think I'm unemployable too. So
Yeah.
You're in good company there.
Yeah, but it's sad that it took me so long to work it out. A number of bosses had told me that was the case.
Yeah.
And it's nice because most of them, I don't think I've got any ex-bosses that I'm not still friendly with.
Yeah.
But
You can't just take over the company.
Yeah. Do you know what it boils down to? I've worked this out recently, that I don't have automatic respect for a hierarchy. I'm a rebel from that point of view. And just because somebody is my boss, I just don't agree with.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
Just like push the buttons.
But the problem is you soon work out that the hierarchy means they can sack you.
Yeah, that's right.
So the last sacking that I had, or departure that I had, was from there, and I just went, I'm not going to work for anybody anymore. So I had a pretty difficult time for a year or two of just trying to find out what I did do. I did some consultancy work. I tried to get a couple of projects out of my own. I ended up working for Graham Norton for a while. various things in about a 3-year period. Ended up doing a lot of training and consultancy work really in media, which I really enjoyed, and it was quite full on, a lot of travel, a lot of long days teaching, and then I got a cancer diagnosis, and that came. I was on actually the thing that sparked it was I was teaching in Italy, which was lovely.
Whereabouts in Italy?
I managed to get to a point where I was getting offered work through the network of people that I taught or whatever, and I would be able to assess them and say, have I been to that country and is it hot, basically, and then I'd go and teach there. So I turned down some things in Norway in favour of going to Africa or Italy, but it was in northern Italy by the lakes. And I taught for a day, which took a lot of energy. I did sort of very hands-on creative work with people. And at 5 o'clock, when I finished speaking, I was so exhausted. Never had I felt like that in my life. And I went to bed. In these training courses full of young, creative people, normally you're drinking till 3 o'clock in the morning with these guys, and you couldn't keep up with that. The next day, I didn't even bother trying.
No.
And I slept straight for 15 hours, and I had this terrible pain in my neck. Didn't go to the doctors for a while after I got back, but I was just kind of shocked at what was happening to myself. Couldn't work it out. Just thought I'd overdone things, or I was getting old. And in the end, my neck started swelling up. About a month or two later, my mother-in-law just insisted I go to the doctors. So to please her, I did. And I wasn't the kind of person that went to the doctors regularly. I was just one of those people that went, don't want to waste the NHS's time.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll pass, it'll be fine.
I can self-diagnose here, thank you.
Yeah. Aspirin will work it out, basically. And so I didn't go soon enough. And then I lucked out with a good GP, who I think had recently been on a training course about the signs of my particular form of cancer, which is leukemia.
Wow.
And CLL specifically, which is a chronic form of leukemia. And he immediately referred me for some blood tests. I went to see him at 2 in the afternoon, had the blood tests at 4 o'clock, and at 7 o'clock that night I got a phone call from my doctor, and you don't get phone calls from your doctor, do you? Yeah. And he said, I want you to come and see me first thing in the morning. And I said, okay, doctors don't call at 7 o'clock at night, that doesn't happen. So I said, I've got a bottle of whiskey here, do you think I should drink that? And he said, yeah. Basically. Yeah. So I didn't really worry about what it was, but I knew that the tests had been to see if it was a form of cancer. So I was almost prepared for sitting down and finding that out, and then I found out I wasn't prepared at all. Yeah.
I don't think you can be.
No, and every time, it's almost like I switch a tap on when I start talking about it, because I want to cry right now.
Yeah.
I totally remember that moment of sitting in front of him and hearing the C word and then nothing else.
Yeah.
I think mic you were just describing as leaving a ghost of yourself.
Exactly that. Because everything just stops. My doctor said to me, I'd like to show you a tumour. And I thought, started to look behind my shoulder. Oh, this is exciting. Whose tumour is she showing me? That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
And I'm in the breast unit.
You stop listening.
You do. And I looked back and she was still staring at me. I went, oh, you mean my tumour? She said, yes, sit down, and that was it.
Yeah.
Gone, yeah.
No, it was a difficult. I can't remember much about that meeting other than that moment, the C word.
Yeah.
And then you just seizing up. I'd lost my dad to cancer. My mum had recently had breast cancer, and she's fine now. So I knew a bit about what to expect. I'd been with my dad when he was diagnosed. So I sort of knew.
That's really hard. Yeah. Really hard for you.
Yeah, it's sort of knew what you were expecting, but still, everybody. We were talking earlier, and we'll probably touch on this a bit about the people that willingly give you advice on cancer when they've got no experience.
Yeah.
And in those situations, what you've got around you is this terrible you think you're invincible until that point. That's the moment in your life where you suddenly go, oh, hang on, I'm not, I'm going to die like everybody else.
Yeah, I think that's so right. That is such a great point, because I don't think up until that point I'd really thought I would.
No,
I don't think I did.
And this is
I know that's going to happen, but it was really real at that point.
Well, and I think it's one of those reasons why people tend to give you advice on what you should be eating when they're perfectly healthy and you're not.
Yeah.
And they're saying,
well,
you
they
should do
think
this.
they're perfectly healthy, right?
They do.
Yeah.
And yet I'm sitting there thinking, well, you have a 1 in 4 chance of getting cancer at some point. It's just not happened yet. And, you know, I'll write down all this advice and give it back to you when you get
when you
it.
won't
or
want
when
it.
your mum
You
gets
won't
it,
want
or
it back
whatever.
from me,
No.
yeah.
But I think that comes out of a fear of mortality, and it's a mortality hit. That meeting with the doctor is it's you are suddenly confronted with the potential of your own death.
Yeah.
And with my GP, he didn't know that much about what happened next anyway. So then within a couple of days, I saw a haematologist, and then I switched off 2 seconds into that conversation as well because it sounded a lot worse.
It's overwhelming.
And actually, I managed to get Cancer Research to change the wording on their website describing my cancer, because it said something along the lines of people diagnosed with this cancer normally have 2 or 3 treatments and then perish.
Wow.
What?
Wow.
And then I talked to my haematologist, and she said, "Oh no, hang on. People that are diagnosed with this cancer are normally in their 70s, so they're probably going to die anyway within 20 years of that. You're in your 40s, so we don't know basically how long you've got." But then my doctor in Oxford said exactly the same thing. I researched her work, because one of the lovely things about the internet is you can go and find out what your doctor knows about your cancer, and she's quite a prolific PowerPointer, so I'd looked at a number of her research projects, and I said to her, this graph where it says the effectiveness of treatment, and it's a bouncy graph that where the curve gets smaller and smaller each time. I said, what happens after the 3rd treatment? And she said, oh, then you die. She's very German, basically.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, okay, good.
That's encouraging. Yeah.
So in the end, you start to get to this point where you just go, okay, I'm going to die before I expected, or before some people around me probably, so I probably need to do something about that. And that takes people in lots of different ways, doesn't it? I think some people immediately decide to buy some Lycra clothing and start running up mountains. I wasn't going to do that. Some people decide to do charitable work, which is great. Some people decide it's time to leave their partner and do things, or become permanently ill, you know. And some people decide to be that way.
Yeah, no, it's
to
true.
be defined by their cancer.
Yeah.
So I don't think I ever had a moment where I just went, okay, I'm going to do this. But what I figured was, okay, if what happens with my leukemia is it comes back, it's guaranteed to come back. And it comes back in cycles of about 4 to 7 years, statistically. I don't know with mine, I'm only on the 2nd time. I'm right in the middle of what they call the treatment zone right now. So on paper, I'm quite ill and ready for my next level of treatment. But
and the irony being, you look really great.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's a good job we're doing a podcast because people believe you.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Well, it is. It's a hidden illness.
It's a bit infuriating that it's a double-edged sword when people say that to you, because inside you don't always feel that way, do you?
No,
you just don't.
And you lose a bit of weight, and you know, and I live in Brighton, and that makes you look healthier than you might necessarily be, because you rust a bit in the lovely weather.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. It's a hidden illness, and the other day, because the biggest problem for me, the biggest symptom of cancer that I have is fatigue.
Yeah.
And fatigue is something that is really difficult to explain to people.
Oh gosh, it's horrendous.
You know, you've had cancer. I love talking to other people that have had one form of cancer or another, because they totally get what fatigue is. And the rising levels of fatigue that you get.
There's nothing you can do to combat it.
No.
Because I thought, I'm mentally, I'm okay, so I'm just going to crack on. You just can't find it.
I used to survive on nicotine and adrenaline in my life, and I could power through a whole day without eating or doing hugely energetic things. And now sometimes I can just wake up and go, okay, there's no petrol in the tank.
Yeah, we're done.
There's no petrol station anywhere nearby. It doesn't matter what I put into myself or do to myself today, I'm not going to get any more energy.
But did you learn to look after yourself and be kind to yourself during those times? You know, I'm not one for downing tools, and I still showed up for myself every single day when I felt rough.
Yeah.
But you can't just go gadding about like you used to do.
No, well, I had to change my work. Because certainly as the illness got worse and the treatment kicked in, which is chemotherapy, which screws your brain and all sorts of things. It does. Chemo brain was the worst.
Oh, okay. I'm really glad to hear. Well, I'm not glad to hear that, but I thought I was going mental.
I've seen it in
point.
a lot of people.
I did.
You can't make decisions. You can't.
Everything.
And decisions you do make, you don't remember making.
No, you don't.
And
everything seems so horrendous, and there's no escaping from it, is there? You can't. I often wanted to get out of my own body when I was going through treatment, and you couldn't. You were locked into it, and that was horrendous.
Yeah, pretty awful.
Yeah.
And funny enough, in the house at the time, my stepdaughter had she had an eating disorder. She had anorexia at the same time. So we were quite a troubled house in that period, in a lot of ways. And in both cases, we both just kind of went along for the ride that you then go on at that point, basically, where other people are looking after you, hopefully, and then you have to work out. For me, it was about, okay, well, what work do I really enjoy doing? What work have I always wanted to do? Because I could start to think about that 3-curve graph of my doctors and go, well, that could be 12 years, it could be 30 years. Those gaps between the not having cancer and having cancer, but I don't know, basically. So I really do need to be enjoying myself a bit more and not stressing quite so much about things. So I just decided to change the work that I do, and primarily it was about, can I do work that I can get out of bed, sit down at my desk and my computer and just do it, and I don't need to travel to Africa and spend a day lecturing or do a production where you're working heavily all the time, or have people relying on me, so that if I decide not to work, then I just don't work that day. I can go out for a walk instead. So I started doing design work, which is what I'd always wanted to do when I was 17, and just lost that path, I guess. And I found ways, because of the wonderful internet, to win work just through the web. And started to get good and just practiced and it got to a point where I was designing logos and things for companies, and I was quite proud of what I was doing. They were appearing on donut shops in Chicago and things, which was quite cool. And then I got a dog because I was really not leaving the house much. I'd moved to Brighton, or we just bought a place in Brighton. I was going to move down here, and I got Scrabble, my dog. And that was largely for 2 reasons. One was to prove that I was a grown-up and I could look after somebody else. I had a dog, which I didn't do a very good job of in the first stages. And secondly, to get me some exercise. So I kind of did a business deal with Scrabble to get me fit, and I would feed her. That was kind of the deal.
She's given you a whole lease of life.
She did, because primarily it's because I got her from a rescue centre. I just fell in love with it, and I brought her back to my flat, which, as you know, is 3 floors up in Hove, and immediately got her in the flat, and she peed on the floor. And I'm not really a dog owner, so I'd not really had dogs in my life. So I'm like, what the hell is this? What you're going to do? I thought you'd go to the grass or something. Yeah.
Well,
but obviously she'd been in a car all the way from the rescue centre.
Right, so you hadn't walked her.
And I hadn't taken her for a walk before I put her in the flat, because I was so excited to get her in the flat.
Yeah.
And what I realised was that she knew a damn sight more than me. She'd hung on to this wee in the car, thinking he's going to let me have a wee.
Bless her. Yeah.
And then I bring her straight into a flat, so she's going, right, I can't do anything about this. So instead of taking her straight back to the rescue centre, going, I'm not a good dog owner, I did a little cartoon as to why she'd done it, and I suggested that she'd walked into the flat, realised my floor needed mopping, and the only way of telling me was to pee on it, so I'd have to mop and clean the floor. And that started me doing a few jokes on social media for her, and they got quiet just on my own account, and then people started to really like them. So I thought, well, I'll move them and start an account for Scrabble. So I started a Twitter and a Facebook page, and then during a reasonably bleak period of my life, which I won't go into why it was, but it was a fairly dark time in my family life, and I wasn't reading my emails at the time, and about a week later I kind of came out of that fog and looked at my terrible full inbox, and there's one in there saying, "Dear Scrabble," and I thought, well, hang on, who's writing to my dog?
Yeah.
And it was a publisher who just said, "Dear Scrabble, I've seen your lovely pictures online, and I'd like to turn them into a book if you could get Mike to do something." But I thought, God, this was a week ago. Who doesn't want to publish a book? What a lovely request. And I may have missed that, you know. So I wrote back a Scrabble saying, "I'm terribly sorry it's taken a week. I tried to get Mike to write to you, but he's a lazy, good-for-nothing idiot. And it's taken me a whole week to work out how to use a keyboard with no thumbs."
Yeah, we pause.
And then my publisher starts writing back to Scrabble going, "Oh yeah, I get it. Writers and illustrators are really lazy, aren't they, basically?" And we had it backwards and forwards, and we never met initially, but we got the book contract through. But in the end, I had to write and say, "You realise it's not Scrabble that will sign this, it will be Mike." And we got 2 books out in about 6 months, called Mike and Scrabble and Mike and Scrabble 2.
So you spend your days writing about Scrabble and just...
Yeah, well, I try to every day, a little less so recently with Mike and Scrabble, but I try and draw something every day, every 2 or 3 days, in each of the things that I do.
And so even, I'm interested in that, even when you were going through your darkest days when you didn't have anything in the tank, you still showed up for yourself.
Yeah.
Because I'm passionate about that.
Yeah.
Even in the smallest way, you just have to show up.
Well, one of the things I've figured with my work, because nowadays most of it I do as 3D images and 3D models, and building those on a computer is quite mindful as an activity. It's, you know, I'm not big one for mindfulness as a thing necessarily, but what I've discovered is that work is something that I can absorb myself in for hours upon end and just suddenly lift my head up.
It gives your brain a
desk.
rest, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I'm not thinking about anything else about other than how do I make Scrabble's tail wag in this picture.
Yeah.
So I find that really quite cathartic to do that. And then also the ability to express yourself and get affirmation. You know, I'm quite shallow about the fact that I use social media because I like to post something I've just drawn and go, "What do you think?"
Yeah.
It's like trying to get your mum to stick a picture on the fridge every day. You know?
Yeah.
So I built those big social media communities, and I found great friends in those communities. Both the other work that I do is a political comic book called The Brexit, which is a bit like the Beano crossed with Trumpton, an old 1960s TV series.
I do remember.
Yeah, and I've got a rather loyal following of that stuff, and I try to make funny jokes. No, they're not always funny.
Well, there's plenty of it, isn't it? No, it's not, but there's plenty of material.
There is.
And it's never ending.
Everybody says that with politics. You just kind of go, sometimes it would be nice if there wasn't.
No, I agree. But we did go through a bit of a dull time, whereas now you've just got this plethora of information it changes hourly.
It's comedic. But what's interesting, I've done 12 months of a comic book, which is it's actually a huge amount of work. I make a physical comic and post it to people. And I've got help. Zoe works with me at the moment. I've had Cindy and Billy work with me and Katie initially. People that have got a bit of time to help you do it. But literally, I'm drawing it, getting it printed at the end of my road, putting it in envelopes, getting all the stamps out, and then carrying the damn things around to the post office. And yet people think I'm Amazon or you know, Rupert Murdoch or something. So it's just one man and his dog making a comic. But I do love that because it's a physical, tangible thing that people are...
Well, and again, it keeps you engaged. It stops you thinking about the rubbish that cancer brings and the treatment that it brings. It makes you feel normal, and you're able to go out there and achieve something really good.
Yeah, and it's very fulfilling work. I get great emails back from people, messages online from people all the time about how I'm keeping them happy in darker times. I'm very honest about my cancer to those communities. They know that I've got it. Mainly because sometimes I don't get the comic out on time. I'm about 2 months behind, in fact, with most people at the moment. And that's literally because finding the energy to do all the things I'm doing is pretty difficult, and I have to balance it. And I think I've got to a core audience for that comic where a large number of people now are owed 2 or 3 comics and they're still paying me every month, and then they'll say, but don't worry about it, Mike, it's all right. I just want you to get better, basically. And that's lovely. I love that relationship. But I don't want to play it up and use it as an excuse all the time, so it actually drives me all the time to get that comic out.
To get a bit more done.
You're doing that yourself. I've got no boss telling me to do this.
It's actually nice because you're enjoying it, and you know.
And then my latest project, which is The Last Iceberg, which has really engaged me for the last month, where I figured if I couldn't stop Brexit, then I'll try and fail at saving the planet. So that's a children's book about a bear who thinks he's probably the last bear and hasn't seen an iceberg since he was a child. And he comes across an iceberg and he thinks it must be the last iceberg. And then he floats down the world trying to figure out what's happened to all the ice, and he meets these animals on the way that have all got their own questions about what's happened to the planet. It's kind of a planet where there are no humans anymore. It's a bit sad, but I kind of want to start telling a story to a younger generation where they'll probably grow up and go, do you remember that book? Because the planet's now a bit screwed, and that book was saying that's what it was going to be. I'd like somebody the other day online.
The planet's a bit better, Mike, because of what you wrote. Maybe we could have that angle.
Oh, you hope so. There's going to be hope in there.
There has.
But I don't want to make it a sort of Disney.
No, but the fact you're tackling
and then the bear fixed the planet.
Which won't happen, but the fact you're tackling it will make people think more, and it'll make a younger generation think more.
I mean, there's a monkey character in there who one of the books is going to be called The Poo Problem, because kids love poo.
Yeah, they do.
And it's a monkey that lives on an island, and it's just been flinging its poo around this island, and it's covered in poo, and it doesn't know what to do. So all the other animals on the island that keep complaining to the monkey decides, I know how to solve this, and it gets some headphones so it can't hear all the other animals complaining anymore. And that's an analogy for a politician that's ignoring what's going on at the moment.
Or teenagers.
Possibly. So again, I'm creating another universe and another audience that's different to the ones that I talked to about Brexit and the ones I talked to about Mike and Scrabble. And that's been sort of really engaging recently.
So I'm seeing what you've done is put support in the form of your work for you to stepping stone your way through.
Yeah. And it's funny because you were talking earlier about these dramatic moments that lead to what the support network is that you create around yourself. And ironically, I'm not saying I'm necessarily getting this right, but this time round, mainly because of my experience of the treatment last time, where there were other problems in our lives, and I did kind of feel that I went through it alone, except maybe for my Macmillan nurse, I guess.
Yeah, that's tough.
You know, I kind of got to a point, if I'm honest, where going in for chemo, I looked forward to, because it was a day all about me.
Yeah.
It was like going to a spa where they pump mustard gas into you.
Yeah.
It's, I'm not sure that's a normal spa treatment, but you just had people looking after you and caring about you for a day. And what I figured actually was that I kind of liked dealing with that alone and talking to the other patients and things like that on those days, rather than having somebody with me being gloomy for the day, because I'd taken a day out of their life. So in terms of that process, I kind of looked at my next treatment, the treatment I'm about to go through, and figured, well, I'm definitely going to just deal with that alone. And if other people come up and help, that'll be great. But I don't need to expect it.
That's insane, because it's completely the opposite to me. I had a full team around me. I built a team around me when I realised I couldn't do it on my own in round 2. I thought I was going to hang myself because of chemo brain.
Yeah.
And I had a whole team.
Yeah, well, I damaged people with my chemo brain.
Do you?
And therefore I didn't want those people around.
Yeah. Okay.
I wanted to face that. You know,
well,
kind of lucky because I know it's going to come back, and I
yeah.
can keep experimenting with the way I do with the treatment.
Okay.
So in a way, this time round, I'm thinking, okay, face it alone. If you need help, there's plenty of people. My kids will help me.
Yeah.
Mum will always be there for me until she's not. I've got great friends in Brighton that offer to come with me and do things. But actually, for me, and I know it differs for everybody, but for me, and this is something I found really difficult to explain to my loved ones, is I really want them to offer to come and help me so that I can turn them down. So that I get the choice as to what happens. I've got nobody controlling me and saying this is what you should do and this is how I'll look after you, which I always object to and get sacked for in jobs or upset people. But I get the control over, do I need somebody to come with me today or not? So I've got friends who live miles away in London and they'll say, when's your next treatment day? And I'll tell them and they'll say, do you want me to come down? And you go, no, but thank you. And that just makes you feel good because you go, well, if I need them, they will come.
Yeah.
And I know they'll come. But there's no way in the world I'm going to make them give up a day of their life to come and do it, basically. When I know I'm going to be pampered by a Macmillan nurse for a day, basically. So I'm all right with somebody there.
I used to take a full picnic in.
That's nice.
With china and knives and forks and linen napkins.
That's good.
I used to look after the person that was looking after me, I suppose, is how I was dealing with it. But I kind of thought it was lovely to be able to spend a whole day with a friend when you just don't get that opportunity anymore.
That's nice as well, definitely.
And friendship, oh gosh, that's the biggest thing that's come out of my ordeal, I would suggest.
Well, and were they friends that were they the friends that you thought would be the ones that stepped up?
Some of them were, but a big chunk weren't. And somebody did say to me at the very beginning, you'll lose friends and gain new friends here. And I thought, oh no, not one of those times. But that's exactly what happened.
Well, you see, I'm not a religious person at all, so when I use this phrase, it will just be to describe how it kind of works in a magical way. I describe them as angels.
Oh, I said the angels that walk amongst us.
Yeah, they're people that pop up who you didn't expect. You've
Absolutely.
got their acquaintances or something.
Yeah.
And it turns out they've got everything that you need. And for some reason, you're providing them with something.
Absolutely.
Which is their ability to care for you, look after you.
Which is lovely.
And those people turn up in your life at those moments, I think. Or you're very much more susceptible to finding those people. Because you kind of know that you need that support. And for me, it's about finding distractions, people to keep my mind alive.
Yeah.
As I say, I don't mind going through the treatment alone. But as soon as I walk out that hospital, I want to go and find somebody that wants to talk about something other than my cancer, basically.
Yeah.
So I'll go and seek out a friend to just have a chat about what they're working on or what I want to do with my Scrabble or whatever. And then in treatment, I found it really interesting meeting the people in the room with you in the day room, because that gives you a perspective. You know, I don't want to sound like there, but for the grace of whatever go I. But you know, I sat next to people that died in the weeks.
Me too. I mean, that's actually.
And you make friends with those people, and then you see them go.
You do, and that's really.
They don't die in front of you.
No,
but they're not there next week.
No, they're not. Yeah, but I found that really tough, and every time I went on the ward, which was every 3 weeks, for 54 weeks, I'd end up in floods of tears over somebody.
Oh God, the emotional stuff is
It's
terrible,
a shocker, isn't it?
I think
you become
the problem with
just a nonsense, crying everywhere.
Yeah, but in a way, I think that's another one of the changes that happen in you. That's good in a way. You do become a lot more emotional.
Well, I think
as a man,
it's not a bad thing to
be
in touch with your emotions, is it? I think men tend to close down a bit more than women do, and
whereas
become a bit more boxed up.
I was there. I was watching a documentary last night about Margaret Thatcher, of all things, and I started crying. And I'm like, oh my God, I've got some sympathy for the woman. What happened? And I'm like, no, it's just it's an emotionally charged moment, and the music is big, and it just made me go like that. And it's because when you're a bit weaker.
Well, you just see life in a different way. Yeah. You do.
And you can see the joy of things and the sadness of things a lot easier.
I think, I don't know if this has affected you, I feel like I was given a huge pair of clarity goggles, and long may they remain, because I make decisions very quickly and easily now.
Do you?
I do, because I just think I don't want to waste my time with you doing that.
Yeah. I think that phrase is the key for me. I don't want to waste my time.
Because you can't, can you, right?
You know what's going to happen? What's the worst that's going to happen if I don't invest time in that thing.
Well, it's a drain. I kind of see there's a line and I want to live above it, and I can feel the drain happening and I think, oh no, I'm out of it, I've got to go.
And that's also where I now create all my own things and publish them myself and sell them directly, and I've got nobody relying on me other than my customers, and nobody telling me what to do in those situations, because all of that was a drain on my life. You know, endless. It's like at the moment I've got the last time I spoke with Mike and Scrabble, doing this thing with the BFI and Film London, where they want me to go and pitch it to a bunch of TV and film producers, and I'm looking at, that's 2 weeks before I start treatment for cancer, so I'm going to be tired. I know I will, but I know I'll have an adrenaline level because what an exciting day. But I will be sitting there thinking, what's the least amount of work I can do to get this story out there?
Absolutely, yeah.
So can I excite somebody about this story?
Yeah.
But then in the past, I'd have wanted to produce a TV show about it, and be there when we're making it and employ the team. And now I'm just sitting there going, I just want to draw a bear. And then you can ring me up and ask if I've drawn the bear.
Let a team
I'll
do
send
it for
you the bear,
Yeah.
and then you can do the work.
Yeah.
So it completely changes your perspective. And it's not lazy, it's just, actually, I just want to draw the bear. I want to tell the story.
Yeah.
I don't want to...
well, it cuts away all the periphery, doesn't it?
Makes you realise what's important to you.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love the fact that actually that's quite a small amount of things. And that's where I want to put my focus. And
yeah. And I can invest a lot of time in things that I wouldn't have done in the past. If somebody's telling me their life story and it's got some sadness or whatever in it, I'll invest hours in those people.
Yeah.
Because, you know, because you think, well, people want to be listened to about things like that. That's a much more engaging human activity than just the rubbish small talk we have.
I agree, and I think
work.
that's the beauty of the reason I started this really is to get people from a greater place at the beginning of a traumatic to come out even better at the other side of it, and the learnings that you go through with all of that, and the communities you build around yourself to achieve that, and the support that you have that underpins you. And
well, you see,
they're all ordinary people, ordinary
media.
stories, aren't they?
I have 30,000 followers for the Trumpton account, and I don't know, about 8 or 9,000 for Mike and Scrabble, and those are my people.
Yeah.
That's the network.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not as real as you and I sitting in the room talking about this now, but I've made great real friends out of that environment who are now part of my life, and that's because I'm sharing what I'm thinking and it resonates with people. And
and you're helping them, and that gives you, it's a circle, isn't it? Yeah, lovely.
Recently we sent out an email, Zoe and I, because we're 2 comics behind, and we sent out a bunch of comics last week, and the email that we sent to tell people it was coming, I was clear in it saying, look, it's the bloody cancer and Boris Johnson, basically, because why is it not his fault? Yeah. And because I was honest in this email, I just said, I'm sorry, I'm letting you down. It's hard work doing this. I'm going to cry again. I got some emails. There were some of the most beautiful emails back from people just saying, oh, Mike, it's fine. I'm so sorry to hear you.
It's the kindness that brings the emotion, isn't it? It is, yeah.
When people reach out to you and really do.
No, I'm the same, yeah.
Because you try and keep a brave face on it all the time.
You do.
But there are definitely times where you're just going, it's not feeling sorry for yourself, but it's just...
Well, because I think it's underlying there all the time, how you're feeling now with what you're talking about. That's how I feel. I feel that it's just a touch away. Somebody just needs to say something to me and I'm off,
yeah,
you know?
You can flip, can you?
Yeah, whereas when people are a bit harsh to you, that's when you pull yourself up and have to deal with it.
Well, that gives me energy.
I think so. But when
and also, I don't care. You know, I've had some customers complaining about the lack of comics and treating me as if I'm Jeff Bezos who runs Amazon. And I'm like, do you know what? I don't want your £4.
No, I think
bye. It's like, I'm not going to deal with this problem.
No.
I don't need
Life's
that level
different
of
for me now, and now I've got to deal with it that way, yeah.
Yeah. And it's, a friend of mine has a phrase which I love, she's learned to say, which is... she used to be one of those people that would always say, we could never say no to anybody else to do something. She says, I'll try and fit that in, I'll try and do that, I'll try and do this. And now she's learned, after I think a few hard lessons in life, to say, I'm really sorry, but I can't help you with that.
Yeah.
I might be able to tell you somebody that can,
Yeah.
but I can't.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
going to
agree.
get involved in that problem
agree.
with you, basically.
I think that's...
I'm trying to learn to use that a lot more. I'm going,
Yeah.
it's an honour that you asked me to get involved in this, but I can't do anything
Yeah.
for you. So saying no, I think I've learned to do that in the last 3 years, where I can just go,
Yeah.
no, that's not part of what I want to do.
I think that's what you've got to do.
Yeah.
Self-preservation.
Which comes down to the reason why I publish my stuff again, because I don't really want to be working for clients that have got their own ideas about what they want me to draw.
Well, and driving you on deadlines that you might not be able to keep up with.
And when they go, can you try it in
But
yellow
it's
or with a different font?
Yeah,
you
you're
kind
just
of
like,
go,
get
you know
lost.
what? Why didn't you learn to draw?
Yeah.
Basically. And I've done that. I've sacked clients in the last 3 years. I've said, I'm sorry, I can't work with you. I don't find it a creatively enjoyable process, so I'm off.
And that's okay.
And they go, you can't do that. And I'm going,
yeah,
I
just
can.
did.
It's fine.
Enough already.
Yeah.
Thanks a million for doing the podcast, and it's great to meet you and get to know your story a bit. And just to finish off, I wondered if you'd just let me know what inspires you to carry on a day-to-day, really.
Oh, every day. Do you know, I struggle with that. I work, I get up very early in the morning, and I don't know what that problem is, basically, but I'm a 4 or 5 o'clock riser. And
Even in the winter?
Yeah, and
okay.
I start,
I do that in the summer, but the winter's a challenge.
And what I try to do is get almost all the work that enters my head. I'm not a list maker, and also I don't like lists because they terrify me the next day when I realise I didn't do anything yesterday that I should have done. So I have a cup of coffee and I work out what it is I want to do that day. And if I can get it all done by 9 o'clock, I've got a whole day in Brighton.
Oh, yeah, nice. Yeah.
Or I can work for the rest of the day and do some other stuff. So getting started is what inspires me. Starting on something. Quite often it's the wrong thing, but it's just what I want to be doing right now. And then that leads to another thing that leads to another thing. So, the iceberg project I'm working on at the moment is absolutely because I just wanted to draw a bear and figure out how to draw a bear in the way that I do. And then that led to the story starting to appear in my head that inspired me to do that. And Greta Thunberg in that case was somebody that, just amazing speech that I saw that must have been floating around my head that night. But people inspire you, don't they? Ultimately, you see other people coping with things that are much worse than your problems. And that always inspires me.
Yeah.
I hear stories from people about their life that you just go, my God, my life was all right.
Yeah.
It's...
And it doesn't actually, it sounds really harsh, it doesn't stop you from being happy. I know that when you're diagnosed, happiness and cancer or divorce or grieving or whatever don't go hand in hand.
No.
But it is a choice to be happy. It's a choice you have to fight for, is what I feel.
Yeah. And making yourself happy.
Exactly right, not relying on somebody else for that.
I'm not sure this has got anything to do with the cancer, but it's... If you're not happy, the people around you won't be happy.
No, I agree. And you
can't please anybody if you're not happy.
You can't. You draw people to you that are unhappy too. And,
yes. Yeah. So and that requires a little bit of selfishness, a little bit of doing what appear to be the wrong things but turn out to be the right things because you knew where you were heading.
Yeah.
And this idea of you don't have to work every day. And I know that sounds arrogant because I talk to people that have 3 bloody jobs that do have to work all day. But I'm very lucky that I've created an environment for myself where I could decide to try and sell something online today and it will sell. And that will generate me enough money to survive for another 3 days and that's all right. And I've learned to live on a lot less money.
Yeah.
Because the other thing that I think makes you happy, I'm not sure these are inspirations, but if you want to be an artist full-time, you have to learn how to live on very little money. Once you've learned to comfortably live on very little money, actually anything that comes in against your work is a bonus.
Yeah.
So don't anybody get set out post-cancer to become an artist and try and become rich.
I don't know, sometimes money can skew your view as well, I think.
Totally, because you end up trying to feed the mortgage machine, trying to keep yourself above water all the time.
Well, and I think in some cases, not all, but you can lose touch with who you are. I'm not saying you shouldn't have money for that reason, and that's the whole separate. It's all right, a whole separate conversation. But I think sometimes it can just skew what the truth of you is.
Yeah. So try and work out.
Popular today.
That's my phone pinging off. That must be something. So if that ends up in the podcast, I apologise. I think try and find something that inspires you every day to be happier, and then that will just flow out to other people, basically.
I agree. Well, Mike, thanks a million, and it's been lovely to come and visit you.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed that.
Thank you. If you like this podcast, like it, comment on it, or share it. Thank you.